I mean, like, I don't mind stepping back here to level an alt in Draenor, because Draenor is actually not that bad. It's actually a pretty good leveling area. I actually remember being super into the expansion, because I actually really loved the leveling experience here. Like when it first came out. So I actually had high hopes that the expansion was going to be pretty decent, given how good the leveling experience was. But it ended up being like one of the worst expansions. And some people say that BfA is worse than this, and I don't agree at all. This expansion was really bad. I feel that the only reason why BfA is getting remembered as... Jesus, how do I get... Okay. Is being remembered as harshly as it is just because it was the second time they had a really bad expansion. Because, like, this expansion here was their first one that people were like... The general consensus was that it was garbage. There's a lot of people that don't like Cataclysm, or, you know, don't like the Kung Fu Panda expansion. Like, there's going to be people who don't like any expansion, but the general consensus wasn't that Pandas and Cataclysm were bad, right? Mediocre at the worst. But Warlords was the first expansion where I just saw so many people in all forms just getting upset with how bad the expansion was. So when they, you know, went to the next expansion, they were kind of like, you know, well, it was their first really bad one. I'll give them another chance. And Legion, while not, in my opinion, a fantastic expansion, was certainly a step up from Draenor. It had a lot of good things going for it. There are some things that I don't like, and in retrospect, are worse off, you know, as the expansion went on, or as the expansions had gone on. I mean, like, I hate the fact that I had, like, these legendary weapons, and now they're just in my bank somewhere, right? Like, that's extremely irritating. That, because they were supposed to be some of, like, the biggest weapons, or most important weapons in WoW lore, like the Doom Hammer, for example, but where's the Doom Hammer now? It's just chilling out in somebody's bank somewhere. Because it's useless compared to all the other weapons, right? That I don't think was a great play, but I mean, I can forgive it, I guess. But it was certainly, no matter what, it was a big step up from Draenor. Draenor just had no content at max level, right? You'd log in, you'd go to your garrison, do the mission table, and then you'd be like, now what? Because I got really good gear without ever leaving my garrison. So what was my motivation, other than maybe, like, I want to collect some mounts or something? What was my motivation to do any of the raids or heroics or heroic dungeons or anything? Because I could just get the gear off the table. So yeah, so then Legion comes out. Legion's like a decent expansion. It's the general consensus is that it was a good expansion. So then BfA comes out, and BfA is once again considered a garbage expansion. And I feel like people just got angry at that point, because they just had a bad one. Like, they just finished a bad one like 2 years ago, or 2 years before BfA came out. So then they were just pissed. They were like, you just had a bad one. How can you possibly have a second bad one so close? Right? And not learn your lessons. That it wasn't that long ago that there was a bad expansion. But I think if you stack Warlords and BfA next to each other and objectively step back and really try to analyze them objectively, Draenor is worse, right? Threw all its eggs in the garrison basket and then didn't have anything else to its name. BfA at least tried to do some things at endgame. BfA was just BfA was functionally bad. The thing with your necklace was bad, and the farmative power was bad, and the artifact powers were bad or uninteresting, and every major patch was them trying to fix how bad the original mechanic was, and then the expansion could never really recover. I think by the time 8.3 came out, people were finally starting to warm up a little bit to it, to the mechanics, but then you only had one major patch cycle to use and get used to. The new system. So, ooh, I leveled. But at least there was content. There was content to do in BfA. There were the world quests. There were decent achievements you could grind. There's a bunch of stupid ones, but decent achievements, good raids. Dungeons, Mythic Plus. There was all sorts of content, right? But Draenor just didn't have any. I don't even understand how it got released in its state, given how little it had going for it. So, I think people are just upset because BfA was now the second terrible expansion in less than half a decade. And I think that just killed people and killed their interest in the game, because, yes, I've had people or friends, or guildmates who played the game, and they stopped playing during every expansion. I lost people in Wrath, I lost people all the way back in TBC. In Cataclysm, and every expansion onward, I lost people in my guild for one reason or another, or whole guilds, broke up. But I never had a situation where so many people quit at one time. Because I was going to have like a work group and everything. I put out a thing at work to recruit people for, create a work group where we could raid and do dungeons, and there was interest. 1 month into the expansion, and none of those people logged back in. Not a single one of them logged back in. Right? And I think, that's why people look at it with such disgust, is that all those friends or all those people who are playing, who were like, they gave they gave the game another chance after Draenor because they're like, it was the first bad expansion. They just couldn't deal with a second bad expansion, so then they quit and had no desire to come back. I mean, if I had quit in BfA, I don't think there's anything that's happened. Those poor people. Left some boots behind, though. I'll take those. So there's people who were left behind who wanted to keep playing, and they just didn't have their friends with them. And like I was about to say before, those people rudely interrupted me by exploding. If I had quit back in BfA for whatever reason, there was nothing... I don't think there's anything that's happened in this expansion, mechanic-wise or story-wise so far anyway, that would have drawn me to come back to this this game. Right? So if I had quit, there was nothing that would draw me back, and I'm someone who's been playing WoW for a decade and a half at this point. So I'm even more I'm more invested than, say, the average person is. Oh, I'm gonna die. I didn't even realize. So I'm more invested. I've sunk so much time into this game that I almost don't want to quit, because it'd be like, geez, it feels like just leaving a part of my life behind at this point. But if I quit, there was nothing would have drawn me back. This Covenant thing is like, it's alright. Right? Torghast is fun. I do enjoy Torghast, but at the end, it's not like it gives me a ton of rewards, so it's just alright. No, the story is weird. Everything they've done with Sylvanas since Legion has been weird. So it's hard to get excited about anything to do with the story. So there's nothing that would have drawn me back. So, and I think that's the main problem we're looking at here. There's nothing drawing people back to retail WoW. So I do think that BfA is just remembered more harshly because it was the last straw for many people. Right, so there's an emotional hatred towards it. And I feel it too, because I am so irritated that Blizzard put out another expansion so quickly that made it so that I have very few people I still play WoW with. And I don't have the energy to invest in finding a whole new group of people. Because all the people I used to play with are gone. I don't think there's a single one. Oh, die again. Jesus Christ. I don't think there's a single person left that I used to play with other than my father and my wife. And there is another guy who pops in and out every now and then. He was really obsessed with Classic for a while. So I don't really play with anybody anymore. And I can really put that squarely on the shoulders of BfA. People just can't get back into the game since then. Right? Or at least it doesn't appear that people are able to get back into the game since then. So I think when people say BfA is the worst, they're just upset by what happened as a result of it. But objectively, Draenor was worse. I really don't see if you can be objective and unemotional about it, how you could look at Draenor and go, oh no, that was better than BfA. It's just no way. I don't think there's anything about Draenor that was better than BfA, honestly. I don't think there's a single thing that makes it better.